So I'm thinking about writing something, Melody, and I want to workshop it with you. You know how stand-up comedians, they go to a club and they tell all their bad jokes?
Please,
they try to work out the kinks in their act.
I'm here.
So here's my thesis. Fear is ruining Minneapolis politics, mainstreaming offensive and or oddball characters, attracting more context-free local TV news coverage, and causing more and more people to believe things that aren't true. That is my thesis. And I've got a series of bullet points to back up my thesis. But what do you think about it so far?
We're rolling. We're rolling.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
So it's been, this is the Wedge Live podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards. Joining me today for another monthly with Melody. We did June, we did July. We're keeping this going.
Yep.
You were off probation.
I didn't know that. That's new to me.
I've repeatedly texted you that you're on probation.
I know. Well, I know.
There's no guarantee that you would come back.
I knew that I was on probation. I didn't know that you were announcing that I was off probation.
Oh, well, that must be a pleasant surprise for you.
Yeah, thank you. I
Melody
learned
Hoffman,
it. I learned it with everybody else listening.
It's good. People on YouTube can see your reaction in the moment, learning that you've been let off Wedge Live podcast probation. Melody Hoffman from SouthwestVoices.news. Thank you for being here.
Monthly with Melody.
No, don't sing it. I have to play it.
Oh. Monthly with Melody, where I share all the news for you and me. Monthly with Melody. Let's get down to it, John and me. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Oh,
are you ready to get down to it? 1, 2, 3, let's go.
Yeah. Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3, let's go.
Okay.
Wow.
I think what people expect from the monthly with Melody is, first of all, the farmers market updates. People clamor for that.
I got two. The Tiny Diner is having a farmers market on Thursdays, and I was supposed to be prepared for this. I organized myself with little pieces of paper. It turns out to be really effective until you need something, and then you don't know where it is. So,
who is that on your arm? On your right arm?
This guy?
Who is that? Yeah.
Mr. Rogers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
As it was swinging past the screen, I thought it was like Ross Perot for a moment.
Oh, I've also gotten, who else? People thought it was, oh no, I have an Ira Glass tattoo that people think things are. But Mr. Bean. People thought that this was Mr. Bean.
Oh, yeah, okay, I kind of see that.
And yes, I did say I have an Ira Glass tattoo. Do you know who Ira Glass is?
He's the This American Life,
Yeah.
The early days of podcasting, I think. But also a public radio show.
For decades before podcasting. Yeah, but a lot of podcasters have taken on that. I don't think we realize that like This American Life kind of set up a particular format for storytelling.
The sound of his voice is what everyone tries to sound like, I think, including me. Am I doing a good Ira Glass right now?
Yeah, kind of the calm. Yeah, just kind of calm, quirky. But then he's really good at sounding genuine all the time when I don't think that he is.
No, I'm not. Am I good at sounding genuine?
No, you sound no. You don't sound interesting.
Even when I am genuine, I sound sarcastic.
Yeah,
I think
that's the problem with deadpan people, as I am one too. Anyways, we're gonna have to come back to the farmers market update because I didn't do my job as a reporter.
One quick thing I want to talk about, which we haven't had a chance to on the podcast, is the mayor's new commissioner of community safety, Cedric Alexander. Have you done a lot of thinking about that? Any writing about that at all?
We haven't written anything, but we linked to the story that was, I think the Reformer did, about his experiences in his previous jobs, and the one that I clung on to was the alleged sexual harassment claims. Did you read
Against
that article? Yeah.
Oh, I did not read that. No.
Oh. Yeah,
Sexual
he's had yeah.
Well, that's a
Yeah.
thing to learn.
And
as we begin.
I thought that's why you were bringing it up, because he's had some
Oh.
he's got a problematic past.
No, not at all. I have all questions and no answers. That's me, Melody. All questions, no answers.
Okay.
So he's got a law enforcement background, and you can Google up those sexual harassment claims. Led police departments in New York and Georgia, worked for the Department of Homeland Security in Dallas. The local TV news, this is a question I have. The local TV news interviews that he's done, they've been about like 8 minutes long, and they are largely or almost entirely focused on, well, how are you going to address crime? And you're not going to be police chief, you're going to be commissioner of community safety. And the point there is to bring all these other offices and departments together and try to build up. One of the priorities of Minneapolis post George Floyd is try to build up the city's capacity to respond to public safety incidents with where it's not violent, with nonviolent responders like the Behavioral Crisis Response Team. Hasn't really been asked to address that, at least on TV, and that's mostly where I get my news, Melody. I don't know about you. And I'm also curious about his competence. Like, one of the problems in Minneapolis is no one paid the price in leadership for anything that happened in the summer of 2020, the response to that. And there was aside from the whole racist policing thing, we want to throw that aside, just the competence. If you look at the after action report, it makes you think none of these people know what they're doing, and no one was held accountable. We the people reelected the mayor, and the mayor held no one in his administration accountable for what happened. So I'm hoping that the mayor has hired someone that is hopefully innocent of any sexual harassment claims, but also like extremely competent. But I didn't see anything in his bio that was like, this guy's a turnaround artist. He went into a place that was a disaster and he turned it around. I haven't seen anything like that. What we do know about him is that he's an MSNBC commentator, so he'll be good on TV, which I assume the mayor probably likes that a lot. So those are my questions, Melody, and I have no answers.
Yep. So he doesn't have a background in like community policing or any kind of community organizing or alternative aspects to the status quo, and that's not his background.
Basically, you could have plugged him into the police chief job if you'd wanted to.
Well, the other question is, what is the definition of this community public safety thing that Mayor Fry created, even though we were trying to create that? They were trying to create that with the question too.
So the idea is the same, to integrate all of our public safety departments, Office of Violence Prevention. I don't know if that's getting a new name. But it will all, like fire, Office of Violence Prevention, police, Office of Emergency Management, under this one department. Because one of the things Fry complained about after the Strong Mayor thing passed, which he asked for, is that he's got too many direct reports. So he needs somebody to be mid-level between him and these other departments. It's a very frustrating story when you go back and think about the debates we had during the election, because I thought one of the advantages of our police reporting directly to the mayor is because the 14 bosses problem. I don't know. We're inserting more bosses into the situation because apparently that's more efficient. It saves the mayor from having to make too many decisions because he's got a lot on his plate right now.
Well, the other thing that strikes me is that the way that he developed his community safety umbrella, he used the name, even though on the ballot was talking about something completely different.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't know yet because we hadn't seen it, but
Yeah, the mayor's objection to question 2, if you believe the words coming out of his mouth, was purely and again, there's contradictions there, because he said he supported removing the minimum, and he also opposed the structure that would have given council policy control over the police. and he supported creating a public safety department. So if you boil it down, the only thing he really opposed with question 2 was the leadership, the reporting structure. Because he was against the minimum in the charter. He's for creating the public safety department. The only thing that was at issue, and nobody who actually voted last year was voting on this. They were all voting. A lot of people thought they were voting against abolishing the police. They weren't like voting against a reporting structure. That's not what people were voting on, but they thought they were.
They also thought that we were defunding the police. Meanwhile, we've actually paid out so much money to the police department, to specific officers.
And so we've had a lot of settlements, both to PTSD claims from officers, a lot of settlements to people that officers have abused, engaged in some kind of misconduct over, tens of millions of dollars in these kinds of settlements. In addition, the Star Tribune has recognized and reported what everyone who's watched a budget hearing or a budget discussion at the city council knows, which is the MPD has more money than they know how to spend. Every budget post George Floyd in 21, so the budget adopted in late 2020 for the year 2021, and the budget for this year adopted in late 2021, had more money in it than MPD was able to spend. I don't think most people realize that. And those budgets were adopted by the big bad city council that we had previously, that a whole election was run against, acting as though they were out to abolish the police, defund the police, fire a bunch of cops. But MPD has more money than they can spend. It's just a fact, and they have for years. And as you can tell, I'm very frustrated that we're making a lot of decisions as a city not based on like good information.
And I think about the November election a lot, because that was such a clear, the misinformation that was coming in from the vote no, I can't remember, the people who wanted to maintain the police. Yeah.
All of Minneapolis.
Yeah, that they were like confusing people, like saying that they're going to defund the police. And I get that the city council at one point all basically said that they wanted to defund the police as well. I was wondering,
they stood on a stage.
Yep, that's going well. If that was their goal. But we haven't done anything of the sort in terms of defunding. And it's just so frustrating, not necessarily that we have or have not defunded the police, the fact that it's such a lie. Like, it was just like straight up manipulation. And to see, like, not even, maybe we'd have a smaller budget. Like, no, they still have the same amount of money and they're not spending it. Like, that's how much money they have. Like, it's the exact opposite of what people were claiming was going to happen.
Yeah, a lot of them quit. So even with a smaller budget, and a lot of departments got cut mid 2020 because of the pandemic and decreased tax revenue. So there was a cut there. But like when you were employing many fewer officers, a lot of officers have quit MPD, hundreds. And there's just no way to create officers out of thin air, no matter how much money you have, whether it's the time it takes to train them. It's a very extensive process and time consuming process to train them, assuming you even have the applicants and they're not filling the classes, the recruit classes that they've set up. They're not filling those classes with the number of spots they have. So, I mean, if it makes you feel better, a number on a page that we're spending on police, okay, then I guess you feel good, but it's not resulting in a larger police department. And I don't know, maybe we could find ways to spend that money, Melody. I know it's hard to staff up other enterprises too, other departments with new programs. That's also going to take time to stand those things up, but maybe we could find a way, because there are lots of things we depend on the police for that don't necessarily require an armed response. Maybe we could be helping people with some kind of other response. We could brainstorm something.
Are you being sarcastic right now, or deadpan?
I mean, I'm kind of being half sarcastic, half serious. But
yeah.
I don't know, setting aside a lot of money you can't spend there's an opportunity cost there. You could have done something else with the money. maybe come at a problem from a different angle.
Like fund the behavioral crisis response team more.
And in fairness, it took a while to stand that up too.
What'd you say?
But yeah, it took a while to staff up that behavioral crisis response team project too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like it's not magic, but go ahead.
No, I feel like, to your point, there are like, if you just said there's like this much free money, like how many departments could use it for resources? I mean, there's so, like you said, budgets were cut. And so if the money can be used for things other than staffing, then like there's, I'm sure, a lot of ways that the city could use it, other city departments.
So are we done with Cedric Alexander? Did we ever able to dig up that? Because I'm curious to hear about this.
Yeah, here, sorry. Okay, I found commentary on it, which is give Alexander a chance to prove his mettle as public safety commissioner. Okay, which is response to this. Fry, public safety commissioner nominee has provoked controversy elsewhere. Do you want me to keep reading?
Oh, yeah.
Mayor Jacob Fry's nominee for the city's first community safety commissioner has faced scrutiny in previous jobs for alleged sexual harassment and financial conflicts of interest, according to media reports in other cities he's worked. So that's according to the Reformer. Do you want me to keep reading?
I think that's enough. Did you draw any conclusions? How serious are these allegations?
Well, let's see. I think people are interested in the sexual harassment. He was accused of sexual harassment by a female officer who said he asked her out during ride-alongs, according to a nonprofit watchdog called Rochester for All. An internal investigation concluded it was a he said, she said situation. Eye roll. My eyes like fell out of my eyes. I rolled them so hard. I will say this as my person. Mm-hmm. Given Fry's track record lately with nominees, like I don't trust him, you know, I don't know, I wouldn't care who he's nominating. Like I just don't trust his nominations because of what happened with the city coordinator with Heather Johnston. Like if that is who he's picking and then also doubles down after hearing all that testimony from city staff, I don't trust anybody he's choosing. Right. So
I am also deeply skeptical of our mayor.
So I'm just deeply skeptical of this person because of Fry's track record, but also his Alexander's background doesn't make me feel any sort of trust either. So, and I don't know, thinking about what you said earlier, somebody involved in the police force I wouldn't pick as like my first choice for a position like that. I'd pick like a project manager or somebody who's like overseen stuff like a big enterprise before.
And the way that the mayor said he came to decide on him as his choice is that he was involved as part of the consulting company that was searching for the Minneapolis police chief. And so I guess that's how Fry came to know this man and decided after coming to know him, well, would you come on and be our community safety
person instead?
Commissioner.
So does that mean the police
chief?
So that means the police chief search happening then?
It is, yeah. The plan was to hire the community safety commissioner before the police chief. So presumably Alexander will have a lot of input, as he did as a consultant, now as the community safety commissioner, in who the next chief will be.
Got it. Wow, a consultant. Our city hires a lot of consultants for things.
Do they? I mean, consultants as consultants, or consultants to come in and then into permanent jobs with the city?
Just the first part. I'm always skeptical of consultants too, because it's like, I don't know. This is way off topic. Word. Yeah.
People seem to think it's a dirty word.
And sometimes go ahead.
Sometimes there's a good reason. Like if you're a smaller city and you're doing a road project for the first time in a while, you wouldn't necessarily keep all that staff on year after year after year.
Yeah.
Like if you got a big project that you're not used to doing, you bring in consultants to help you do it.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Also, I'm eating ice cream. Cheers.
That's fine.
It doesn't make any noise.
Oh, you mentioned the financial conflicts of interest. he's got an interesting resume. He serves on a lot of boards and commissions. Like, he's got a booking website to go on TV as a police commentator. Like, he's kind of I've never heard of him before, but kind of like a law enforcement celebrity type. And that makes me nervous because I don't want the mayor to have hired a salesman. I don't want the person we bring into this role to be good at selling the job. I want him to be actually good at the job.
Yeah, like what qualities or qualifications would you look for this role?
As I said before, it's an extreme amount of competence, because we have suffered a great deal in the city from lack of competence in the executive branch. And I don't know how people are registering this. If they like we deified Arredondo as the department he was running was falling apart. Dario Arredondo was not God's gift to Minneapolis. He may have just been like a bystander to things beyond his control, but there was no scrutiny there. He would go on the TV news and be treated as a savior, as it was clear his department was a disaster. So I just want competence. And I am hoping for the success of everyone in the executive branch. I don't hope for failure because as I say all the time, I live here and we pay the price for this. How about you? What are you hoping for?
I mean, I'm no expert. This is not my field. But like I said earlier, either somebody with like project management experience or overseeing a lot of different departments, but also somebody that has some compassion for people, like all people, and wants to see the city not so reliant on the police, because that's part of this project apparently. So it just seems like the mayor is picking people. I don't know. When you said we don't have a lot of competence in the leadership, you know, individual people, like, so he's like one of the top 5, you know, and he's picking these people. So of course he's not going to pick somebody who's going to like challenge him, and right? Like, why would he pick somebody like that?
I mean, Cedric Alexander seems like someone with a strong personality. And so he seems like somebody who would have a lot of influence with the mayor. Like, I want to do this. Let's do it. And the mayor might listen.
Yeah.
I mean, the mayor does not want to have a falling out with his community safety commissioner. And somebody, I mean, he's coming from outside the city. That's another thing I'm hoping for the police chief and for this role. Somebody from outside the city who doesn't have the baggage. Nobody knows his dirt here. I'm sure he has dirt, but I don't want anyone to know it and be able to hold it over his head, because I want this person to be able to look at other people and hold them accountable. And if you're all covering for each other because of the dirt you all know about each other, nobody is willing to hold each other accountable. You're all covering for each other. So bring somebody in from the outside whose personal life and professional life is a mystery to his coworkers, so he can hold them accountable.
Yeah.
I think that's actually good.
Yep. Well, I guess we'll see. I don't know. How do we get access to, I guess that's I need to figure that out as a reporter.
Access to what?
To Cedric. To like talk, you know what I mean? To just
you want to talk to him?
Well, I mean, don't we want to know what he's like and what he's going to do for our city? You should call him up, see if you can get him on the show. He's from outside the city. He doesn't have the baggage of what he doesn't know what Wedge Live is.
We'll probably go through a communications person.
They're going to say no. Do you ever ask for interviews?
I mean, occasionally. I mean, there are people who I'm pretty sure won't talk to me, and I don't really bother. But listen, if you want to talk to me, and I'm totally fair, and if you listen to the podcast, please be in touch. I'll have you on. I'll have a conversation with you. Sometimes I wonder how productive it will be, because I saw, like, what is he going to say? What am I going to get him to say? Am I going to get him? That's not the kind of, I'm not digging up dirt and saying, well, what about this, Cedric Alexander? What do you say to this? He will say all the right things.
Yeah.
And will be perfectly nice, and I'll be nice back. And I don't know if we'll learn anything from that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I'm running Oh, do you have any other like stories you're working on or things before I move on to the next thing? Do you have anything? What's going on in your professional life? Things that you're working on as stories.
Ooh.
What are you excited about?
Should I? Why not? Yeah, I can talk about it. Have you heard about the 5G towers in Kingfield? The Verizon 5G towers?
Where did I hear it? Oh, Josh Martin was telling me about this.
Oh my gosh.
There are people out there very upset about the 5G towers.
So I'm going to talk to you about this as a report, like with my reporter hat on. Like, so I'm still digging into it, as are the neighbors, but essentially there are these 5G towers going up in Kingfield and more in other places too. Just for 5G technology. It's the technology that's on most cell phones now. And the thing with 5G, if you're not familiar with it, is that it's really powerful internet, but it's in short, it can only go so far. It's kind of like FM radio. And so you have to have more towers around than we're used to seeing. And also we have fiber optic internet around here in the South, which is a racist system because in the North, in North Minneapolis, they don't have access to fiber optic. Thank you very much. Racism. So these people, rightfully so, were like, why are you putting this pole in the front of my yard? And it's not on their yard, it's on the sidewalk side, right? The public right away.
Yeah, it's in the boulevard.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, it's, Verizon. And so some of the residents that are around these poles are like very upset because they weren't, it's the common stuff. And I'm not saying this in a judgy way. It's with a lot of like community projects. Like, I didn't hear about it. Nobody told me. How is this going to impact me? Kind of like after the fact reactions, and we cannot verify whether people did know about it or did not. I would say that anytime I would get a Verizon logo, I would immediately throw it in the trash. I wouldn't look at it. So, not the best way to inform people. But I, again, have not seen the flyer that was sent out. At any rate, the reason why we're getting them was not a city decision. It was made at the federal level as part of the, I don't know what, this is part of my reporting, but it's connected to an act that Joe Biden passed about just getting more accessible internet places, I believe. I heard from Josh Martin that there's some city zoning ordinance that had prevented these towers in single family areas. And since Minneapolis doesn't have single family zoning anymore, pending the anti-2040 lawsuit, I guess, but that one unintended consequence of that change to our zoning laws, eliminating single family zoning, is why these towers can go up in more areas. I'll have to fact check that too, because I'm not sure about that.
I wouldn't think Josh Martin would sway me the wrong way.
No, I know, but I just as
myself,
guy. He is. I have my reporter hat on, and I don't need, if that's wildly wrong, I don't need people coming back later being like, there's audio of you agreeing that, or confirming that. So, and then there's also concerns about what the 5G technology does to your brain. So like we've had conversations amongst the society about like putting our cell phones up to our ears, and that
for
kind
decades.
of thing.
Decades. When I was growing up, the elementary school I went to had like electrical transmission lines going past it, like not by the windows, just in a field next to the school, and people were up in arms about the electrical lines, and I think that was garbage, although maybe it has affected me in ways that I don't understand. I think electricity in transmission lines is probably safe to be hundreds of feet away from. I think it's fine. We're living with electricity in our homes, right?
We are.
And we've been holding cell phones up to our heads
for a while now.
If it's going to hurt you, it's going to be maybe coming out of the phone, coming out of the electrical lines in your house. I don't know, coming out of your router.
Yeah.
Is it not true that scientists agree these 5G claims are not credible? I'm jumping to conclusions, but I assume they're not dangerous because I trust large corporations not to do harm to me.
There's no research that shows that there is harm. There's also the scientific thing of like it hasn't been long enough. There's some people that could say like, okay, sure, you're not seeing any damage now, but we haven't. The longevity is also really important. At any rate, the best part of the story, I think, is how successful this group in Kingfield has been. So they literally have gone out to the corner, one of these corners, and they all keep watch, and they protest, and they put their bodies where the pole is supposed to be. And they refuse to let them put them in. And I think the second time that this happened, the police were called, and the police supported the neighbors and told the Verizon guy to leave. So, and I think it's happened.
Supported the neighbors
3 times. Yes.
Like in what way? Like
you
just did not agree to remove them. Like, we're not messing with this.
Correct.
That kind of support. Not we agree with their claims about 5G
towers. Oh, no. I'm so sorry. No. I don't know how they personally feel. Just that when the police show up, they don't tell the citizens to move, or if they, regardless, because I haven't been at one of these. This has just been told to me by one of the people who were there, that the police just tell the Verizon person to leave, that they're not going to be putting it in.
So are the objections aesthetic concerns, or are they mostly people with health concerns about 5G waves?
Okay, it's more, the number one concern so far that I've heard is like the right to our property, or like the right to know about this stuff, like the democratic process. Like they want to have a public hearing about it. Like they just didn't think that it was again, it's a common thing that we hear in these community situations. Like there just wasn't enough time devoted for us to talk about it, about what these 5G towers were going to do. They also don't like that it was passed down from the federal government. And so the city didn't, again, I have to fact check this, but it wasn't like a city mandated thing. Right. And then yes, some of it is aesthetic. I did see one news program that quoted a neighbor, and the pole had already gone up, and he didn't like that when he looked out his window, he couldn't see the tree anymore. It was a pole, so the pole was obstructing his view of the tree. So yeah, it's all that stuff.
I think I had one more thing to say. Oh, you know what? The mobile phone related thing and the internet related thing that's really rotting our brains. It's social media, I think. It's it's the usual thing of constantly staring at our phones.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean,
it's ironic for me to say because I am constantly staring at my phones.
Yeah. Are you saying, why did you bring that up?
Just because I think people are focused on the wrong thing. It's not the 5G towers that are rotting our brains. See, this is actually a very clever thing for me to say.
I see.
We're constantly distracted by things that are not the issue. And in my opinion, 5G towers are not a big deal.
In the grand scheme of things, yes. But you know how communities operate, how neighbors operate.
Yeah.
They organize around these small things, and to them I think it represents these bigger issues, right? Because there's a whole discussion we could have about the FCC and the corporate influence that's there within the FCC, who then is technically in charge of they oversee the infrastructure. They don't own the internet, but they have they regulate the technology.
Right.
So there's I think there's to maybe not to disagree with you, but I think to community members, these small moments are like the bigger thing, that they are fighting against the FCC. They are fighting against corporations, by doing this.
I admire that in this moment in Minneapolis, people are up in arms about 5G towers with all the things going on. Not to criticize anyone else's hobby. I mean, I got up in arms about a bus lane. I'm still up in arms. I have a bus lane hat. People could make fun of me for caring about something that's not doesn't rate on their scale of things that are important.
Yeah, speaking of, do you have any good tea on like the delay of the city council talking about, or the public works department,
Andrew
committee?
Johnson said this week, I think yesterday he said that they're hoping for, so next Thursday
Yeah.
at committee, and then hopefully something two Thursdays from now, the city council.
Do you know why it was? I mean, I know we talked about it
They're
on
still
Twitter,
looking to
but-
compromise. I think they're looking to find a middle ground of some kind, because, and to fill listeners in, the full-time bus lanes for Hennepin Avenue, approved by the city council, vetoed by the mayor, and city council was unable to override that veto, so we're kind of at a stalemate. And what is happening now is trying to work out a middle ground that the mayor will not veto.
Whew. And so we don't know. See, that's so strange. It's not strange about the city council, but I guess I don't have a good sense. And maybe I could ask any of them about like how much time they actually spend on this stuff outside of committee. Because sometimes it seems like they're working that stuff out. I know individual city council people present things that they have prepared, but it seems like some of that compromising happens during meetings.
Yeah, sometimes it appears as though they have done zero background discussion and are bringing stuff to the council. And Lisa Goodman gets very irritated, and she says stuff like...
And I feel like everyone's time is being taken up, including all of the people in the audience.
And then sometimes the work is done in committee, and then, I don't know. I think they don't want to just bring something and hope to have the votes. They want to make sure they've got enough people on board. My thought is, I'm worried anything that Lisa Goodman would agree to. My assumption is if it's anything halfway decent, Lisa Goodman is voting against it for sure. She doesn't even like the meat. She doesn't like anything about it. Doesn't like the bike lanes. I think there was an email I read, or a newsletter she had written, that was like explaining her position before the mayor vetoed, where she basically dragged everything in the plan as being terrible, as she called for a win-win. She hates everything in this plan, and said people on the other side were being unreasonable and against a win-win. I don't know what she considers a win-win. I think the current street is what she considers a win-win.
But the current street, if it got I hope that people are remembering this during this long process, that the plan, if we went back to the same and repaved it, wouldn't that be against the city's own transportation action plan, complete streets, the transportation action plan, that's the one that says essentially when you reduce, or when there's reconstruction, that you have to prioritize pedestrians, bikes, right? Okay, and
even the mayor's office in an email was like, this would be against city policy to like tear out the bike lane. So I don't, that's not even on the table to do the street as it is. But if you count up the things she's against, what you end up with is the current street.
Right, which she, like, literally city policy says she can't have it. You know what I mean? So I guess it's like a waste of time to, like, and I get it. Like, I totally have empathy for people on all the sides. I get it. But the thing is that, like, it's the policy that says it. That says we have to have a...
She's the only one to vote against the city's transportation action plan. So give Lisa Goodman credit for consistency.
Yeah,
at least she voted against that.
I don't like hypocrisy. So,
and I'm sure she would do away with the policy if she had the votes to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe she does have the votes. Let's hope they don't reopen that can of worms, because we've got some duds on the city council, as I like to say.
You should have a sound effect for duds. I don't know what it would be.
Duds.
But...
I'll cut a clip of me saying we've got some duds on the city council every time we bring up Michael Rainville or something.
Perfect.
So I'm thinking about writing something, Melody, and I want to workshop it with you. You know how stand-up comedians, they go to a club and they tell all their bad jokes?
Please.
They try to work out the kinks in their act.
I'm here.
So here's my thesis. Fear is ruining Minneapolis politics, mainstreaming offensive and or oddball characters, attracting more context-free local TV news coverage, and causing more and more people to believe things that aren't true. That is my thesis.
Okay.
I've got a series of bullet points to back up my thesis. But what do you think about it so far?
Okay, the one that I think all of them are great, except the one about the oddball characters. Like, that one feels the weakest to me.
So you know how the Star Tribune endorsed Mickey Moore last year?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And you know how we elected Michael Rainville?
Yeah. Okay.
And you know how Martha Holton Dimmick is now endorsed by the mayor to be Hennepin County attorney, despite all her ridiculousness?
What did she say at the memorial that was... she
congratulated Michael Rainville for his racism.
Yeah.
And said, I think she said she was proud of him and that he was saying what others are thinking. And of course, let's remind people what Michael Rainville had said is that 95% of those responsible for crime and violence on the 4th of July were Muslim. That's what he said. Mm-hmm. He said that he told a white audience who applauded him after he said this that he was going down to a mosque in Northeast Minneapolis to lecture them about their children. And his white audience applauded that.
And he literally did go do that.
I don't know what he said, but he did go to the mosque.
Yeah.
What we know is that he told the white audience that he was going to lecture the Somali elders, and they appreciated that very much. What else did Michael Rainville do? Oh, he basically, I don't take Michael Rainville's apology seriously, because the next day he was like telling people at his block party, be careful about the people filming, as if it was the problem was he got recorded saying these things, not that he had said them in the first place. Another thing about Martha Holton Dimmick, who is now the Jacob Fry endorsed candidate for Hennepin County attorney, is that she was asked if she would take all the candidates for Hennepin County attorney were asked.
This might be a simple question that everyone agrees on, so it is still part of this question around reducing. It's more complicated than reducing racial disparities, but I am curious. Is there anyone up here that would not take immigration consequences into account when making prosecutorial decisions?
Okay, I just have a tiny little issue. What I'd like to say is that we're trying to do everything equitably. People are charged equitably. People are they proceed through the system equitably on an equitable basis. So you're looking at race, religion. I think whether you're an immigrant or not, I don't think there should be any special considerations. And I'll tell you why. The immigration issues that I've run across, not only as a judge, but as a prosecutor, they're violent crimes that they're committing. I'm talking now, I don't need you to shake your head. They're violent crimes that they actually are committing. They're rapes, they're ag robberies, they're assaults. Those cases have to be prosecuted to the extent of the law.
And so she could have said something like, well, this depends on the severity of the crime, but of course, I'm going to take immigration status into account. I don't want to send someone back. I don't want to, send someone back to a bad place in their country of origin because they've committed a relatively minor crime. Yeah. I'm not going to do that as Hennepin County attorney. She didn't do that. She went immediately to how they're committing rapes and robberies and assaults. That's the immigration situation she's aware of. And so Jacob Fry has endorsed that, in addition to Martha Holton Dimmick, being proud of Michael Rainville for what he said.
Yeah. Then, that's strong. Okay, now that I see what you meant by that, I get it now. Yep.
And Don Samuels, we have news that Don Samuels is paying Victor Martinez, the Republican womb to the tomb anti-abortion city council candidate from last year, to work on his campaign.
And Don Samuels is such great supporting evidence for your thesis in terms of fear. Because do you know what this is just a little mini rant. Don Samuels' campaign was asking, hypothetically, rhetorically, what does Ilhan Omar do for public safety, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that she's a state representative. So he's creating things that she doesn't do because it's not her job.
Right. Well, that's the playbook. right? They
so
blame
then
the
he's
city
going to
council that
confuse
had.
people. Like, that's not
I
her
think just-
job.
I think most people know that she's in D.C. with the federal government, though. It's a harder sell with Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, but I'm so worried about these fear-based voters, because I feel like that explains why Jacob Fry in a large part got reelected. The question that on the ballots got answered the way I don't know. People are they're scared. So to your point, I mean, to your article, yes.
I mean, it worked last year, and it makes sense why you would try it again.
God, it's so scary
Samuel's-
to see, though, because it's like, oh my God, they did this last year and it worked. That's a scary thing.
Samuels has also hired Mickey Moore's former campaign manager, the weirdo son of a local developer, Steve Min, who spent much of last year creating countless sock puppet accounts to send me stories
Alex
about
Min.
crime in like Bloomington. Yeah. That's
Did you
his
say
name.
Steve Min?
The son? I called him the weirdo son of a local developer.
Oh, but his name is Alex Min.
Yeah, the local developer's name is Steve Min.
Okay, I just wanted to say his
Melody,
real name.
you're ruining my bit where I don't
I'm sorry.
say the name.
Isn't
I
it
just
important
say-
for people to know his name, since he harassed people and
Yeah,
doxed
he tried
people?
to get Taylor fired.
Yeah.
He tried to get Taylor fired.
I usually wouldn't do that, but in the women's, or not just women, but like it's a survival thing where we have to share people's names so they know to watch out. It's like a safety thing.
Okay.
That's why I
think
keep
that's-
sharing his name.
You are totally justified, and I forgive you. Don't talk to Alex Min. He will hurt you. Also, so as he was creating all these sock puppet accounts, like it must have been dozens of new accounts he was creating to send me stuff, and I guess they were getting blocked. I wasn't even. Twitter does a good job of like shielding me from spam accounts. I don't
So
see
nice
a lot
of
of it.
Twitter.
I don't get a lot of that. But
That has gotten
like,
much more mature. Yeah.
people would reply to it, and then I would see, wow, he's created another account, and he's sending me weird images of Jason Chavez, who was the person who defeated Mickey Moore, and like crime stories from Bloomington, which I'm in the Wedge. I don't know what goes on in Bloomington. How is this my fault? I'm just the Wedge Live guy. I can't solve your Bloomington crime issues.
Can I say another?
But,
I had a rant geared up. You finish your
but-
thought. I'll write it down.
A very deeply disturbed and weird person that Don Samuels has brought onto his campaign, in addition to the Victor Martinez thing. This is what I'm talking about with oddballs and weirdos, like being mainstreamed into Minneapolis politics. And frankly, like people with dangerous and harmful views sometimes.
I think that's a great thesis. So you're going to write that all as, so just to keep workshopping it. That sounds like that could be 4 separate articles, because what you just talked to me about, like that is a huge article. You just unveiling all of that.
Yeah.
That's a lot of.
I mean, and none of it's new. It's just kind of like synthesizing
Yeah.
things that have been circulating in my brain for the last 2 years. And to go back to the whole budget discussion, and people like believing things that aren't true. Every budget post George Floyd, MPD has been given more money than they could spend. I think most people don't realize that. And I don't want to indict local TV news, even though I kind of do. But if the people who consume your information come to believe things, and I'm not going to blame the local TV news entirely. A lot of it is social media, and like we've got the Citizen app now. A lot of bad information. Used to have gatekeepers, like you used to have to read the Star Tribune, and whatever you think of them, there's some like process there, some fact checking, and there's
Yes.
a lot of context. There's
Yes.
paragraph after paragraph after paragraph of information in there.
Yes.
It's not limited to a 2-minute story that's driven largely by like, what's the most sensational video we can run? But I don't think most people realize MPD in 21 and 22, every year post George Floyd, has had more money than they can spend. And like, whatever you think about whether we need more police, fewer police, like this department fell apart, imploded under the weight of their own corruption and racism. Hundreds of officers quit. People are entirely justified in resenting the police in Minneapolis. And for people like Michael Rainville to say they don't understand why that is, he was raised to respect the police. police have earned the resentment people feel towards them.
Blue collar people make the world go round. They make the city run. And so I respect the police for that. And I understand how short staffed they are and how they are despised by a segment of our population.
But do you understand that? Is it hard for you to wrap your head around that? Why do they need to be despised by a segment of the population?
I don't understand that. My family taught me to respect all public employees, especially the police.
I was raised to respect the police too, but everything in my adulthood, I haven't had an experience where that's been confirmed. So,
yeah.
In which I was like, what should I, I wanted to rant earlier about, you mentioned like somebody from Bloomington. And this goes back to Rainville's comments that, and oh God, this is such a big conversation, so I'm just going to keep it to the Rainville, the July 4th situation. But that I think they're in these news reports, right? Because they happen in Minneapolis. There's an assumption that everybody involved are kids that are from Minneapolis, and that's not always true. And that really bothers me because I was from a suburb in the Milwaukee area where, we had the same kind of situation, right? Don't go to Milwaukee because it's dangerous. There's too many black people there, right? But all the kids from the suburbs would go to Milwaukee because it was like fun, right? But we would have there was also this fear. And so I think that anytime something happens in the city, there's just an assumption that it's the people in the city that are doing it. Whether that's good or bad or right that's not my point. It's just, what if we found out that everybody like that, and we have in other situations found out that it's not just people from our city, right?
Yeah.
And I think that changes the dialogue a lot, because what if we found out that half the kids came in from Bloomington, right?
Yeah. I mean, stop coming into our city and causing trouble, suburbanites.
Imagine if that was the framework.
I think that is a lot of it. And I'm going to say, I mean, there is an argument there that like Minneapolis is the place you can come and get away with stuff.
Yes.
Right.
That's how I would feel if I was a teenager, for sure.
That's where I can go and cause trouble and no one will tell me I can't. And I sound like Joe Tamburino now, but that's got to be a thing, right? Minneapolis is the place I can go to and get away with stuff.
In the suburbs, the police I remember my driver, so fun fact, when I was in Wisconsin, my driver's license was suspended because I got pulled over for speeding so much. And I mean speeding like 7 miles. The cops just sit around and like harass people. Right. Well, everywhere. But there's less to do, right, in the suburbs. So you stick out more if you're going to cause trouble. Mm-hmm. Because everybody and their mom's going to call you if you're in the cul-de-sac. And I say this as somebody who grew up in the suburbs. So yeah, that's how it feels like to me. And even if it's people from our city, like it's an interesting choice where they chose to do that.
Yeah, which is why Michael Rainville, nobody at that mosque in Northeast had anything to do
I know.
with what happened on the 4th of July. Did you read the Star Tribune thing where I forget what the author's name is, but he's talking about explaining basically why this was a horribly racist thing to stick this label on people who like don't generalize, Michael Rainville. You're putting a stigma on an entire community, people who have to carry that with them, who did nothing.
Who already have so much stigma.
Yes.
Right?
They will live with that label forever because of people like you mainstreaming it.
Yes. And it's like so unfortunate because the Somali community has like done nothing but enrich our city. Like I think about that coming from Milwaukee, like I don't have that kind of diversity in Milwaukee and I'm so grateful for that. And it's just rude, like to say that about a community that like has had to work so hard for acceptance here after like going through so much trauma. Oh, God.
Yeah. Did you see Irene Fernando's statement on Michael Rainville?
No, what'd she say?
She said that they share a constituency, like parts of Northeast, I think.
Yeah.
They kind of overlap.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, Basically, she didn't think Rainville was dealing with her in good faith in their conversations, private conversations about this, and that she will not work with his office until he takes steps to remedy the harm that he's caused. Pretty strong statement.
Yeah.
I think that's correct.
It's called sticking to your values and ethics.
And I don't think Michael Rainville's apology was offered. Like, it was written. I don't think he wrote it because it was fairly well written, but I don't think it was offered in good faith because the words coming out of his mouth the day after just didn't match up with the written statement.
And if you're truly sorry about that stuff, you say something different the next day. You know, I've gotten called out for racism, and that's not like what I wouldn't double down. You know, you are actually remorseful. Like, you know, people know it when people aren't stupid. They can see it.
Were you ever able to track down the farmers market news?
Oh, I stopped looking because I got distracted talking to you.
You don't have to. See, I was totally insincere when I said people were clamoring for that. I don't think people are clamoring for farmers market news at all. In other words, I don't think people care.
Okay, you know what? You know what you can do, though, is you can check out the newsletter on Friday, because I'm going to have all that information up on the...
Okay, subscribe to the southwestvoices.news newsletter.
Can I also give a shout out to one more piece on our website, because it's like directly talking about what we were talking about. Community member Cecilia wrote a really interesting op-ed about how the appointment of Heather Johnston as city coordinator represents the systemic racism in the city, like in the city leadership. And so if people are interested in reading her argument, it might just food for thought. Like, you don't have to agree with what she's saying, but she kind of like is starting that conversation. So we always encourage people to leave their feedback, and then we get to publish it back on the website.
Lindale Avenue was very backed up today, Melody. They're painting those stripes.
It was backed up last night too.
I even got a direct message from someone who was very friendly, but was like, "How am I going to get home from work?"
Okay, well,
but they haven't painted the middle lane, the turn lane. It's
all closed off.
Restriping.
Yes.
Also, I don't know, like it's under construction. Please, let's wait. There are a lot of. You know, another thing I noticed, Melody, is when I Google driving directions for fun, and I don't drive, so there's no reason for me to Google driving directions unless it's for fun.
Yeah.
Taking I-35 adds like 2 minutes to your drive. 2 minutes when I Google random destinations. Go down to I-35. Unless you're going a couple of blocks in your car, take the interstate, please.
And
or
if you're
just like sit in traffic peacefully.
I mean,
you chose it. You're not going to save 2 minutes anymore taking Lindale Avenue. Too many people have chosen Lindale Avenue because it's the place where you can drive like a maniac.
Yep. It's like the fast way. Yeah, I saw it backed up too.
It's not a shortcut anymore.
I also saw a bunch of people whipping U-E's at our median.
Yes. It's happening a ton, U-turns. And I think that is partly because it's just not practical to take left turns when traffic is backed up this much.
You can't take left turns, though, there.
Yeah, but I've noticed a lot of U-turns just in general, like everywhere through that center turn, because there's space for it now that there's a center. There's a gap there where they haven't yet painted the center lanes, and it's just empty. So you can pull your car into it and wait. I think I saw an Uber driver also just like pausing to wait in the center lane.
Yes.
So I think we're going to find people finding creative ways to use the center turn lane.
It's like path making or way making. Like, that's how they put in sidewalks, is they just the desired path. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
They just
it's
put
a
the concrete
lane.
Yeah. So I guess they desire to have a U-turn function there. Whatever.
I don't care.
We're doing the best we can. I don't know what else we can do.
Pause in the turn lane. I still maintain that things are going to be better than ever.
I agree. I'm excited. I've never been so excited about a street before.
Okay, are we done? Okay. This has been the Wedge Live podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards. My guest has been Melody Hoffman from southwestvoices.news. Go read all the stories and things she recommended and sign up for that newsletter.
Cowabunga.
This is a real real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.